Finance and Governance Committee meeting. I declare the meeting open at 6:18 p.m. I would like to acknowledge the Bidjigal people of the Aurora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of all lands, waters and sky in the Georges River area, and pay my respect to elders past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who live, work and meet on these lands. Are there any apologies for tonight's committee meeting? Everyone's here. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is being recorded for minute-taking purposes in accordance with Section 5 of Council's Code of Meeting Practice. The recording will be made available on Council's website. The order of business is as shown in the agenda, which has been made available. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is open. Doors to the meeting room are to be left open unless the meeting moves into a closed confidential session, according to Section 14 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Only if the meeting moves into a closed confidential session will the public broadcasting of the meeting be suspended. Council's Code of Meeting Practice prohibits electronic recording of meetings without the express permission of Council. Mobile phones must be turned to silent during the meeting. The disclosure of interest. Do any councillors have any interest to declare? No. There are no speakers registered for tonight's meeting. So we'll start with the first item, FIN 04023, confirmation of the minutes of the Finance Governance Committee meeting held on 9th of October 23. Do I have a mover?
I'll move that. I'm not moving.
Oh, that was just your hand, sorry.
I'll move the minutes.
And a seconder?
Second. I need to say something about the minutes. There needs to be corrections made. I wasn't present for the first three items. I arrived at 6:17 p.m. and in every one of those items, Councillor Ball hasn't been recorded as voting, and you moved a substantial amount of those items, and the Mayor was present. He was when I arrived, and he hasn't been recorded as voting.
Okay.
So
We'll take those. Yeah. We'll go listen to, through you, Madam Chair, we'll listen to the recording and amend that. So you were there, you came in on FIN.
It says I arrived at 6:17, but I'm recorded as voting 3 times before that.
Okay, we'll check that. Thank you.
Do you want us to?
Yeah, move an amendment.
I'll move an amendment that the minutes of the October Finance and Governance Committee meeting, which would be what date?
Held on 9th of October 2023.
Held on 9th of October 2023 be amended, will be checked.
Be confirmed subject to the following amendments as outlined.
Yep.
To 1 second. Following amendments. It will amend that resolution so that includes the.
But you review it afterwards, don't you normally review like after?
Yeah, it just wasn't picked up, sorry. Okay, so you'll second the amendment or first the Vicara?
Yeah.
You can, if you're happy to second it, then it gets accepted, the amendment.
Yep, so we'll vote for the motion. All those in favour? Any against? Next motion, FIN 04123, investment report as at 30th of September. Can I call for a mover and seconder?
Move that.
Second that.
Through the chair, I have a question. Excuse me. For the director. On item 24, it indicates Banton has been working on the matter and conferring with consultants, experts and blah, blah, blah. The latest correspondence on this matter was in July 2003, where the Banton anticipates there's still further work to be done. This has been going for a while, Daniel. Are they really doing any work?
Through you, Madam Chair. So as you recall, I think last financial year, we did receive a payout for another litigation, and they can take years. Like I think the CDO was 2008, and we're still receiving some compensation into 2022-23. So it does take time, and I don't think it is it's not always high sort of priority. It's just a timing thing. Through you, Madam Chair, to the CFO, if there's anything you wanted to add.
We have, I guess we have checked in with them again recently and there's still no further update.
Okay.
But action was.
Thank you for that.
Are there any other questions? If not, I'm going to take a vote on it. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Next motion, FIN 04223 quarterly budget review report for the period ending 30th of September 2023. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Move the motion.
Would second that.
Are there any discussions, questions? Elise?
No, I didn't have any questions.
Through the chair, the director again. Page 27. I note that the revised operating surplus is 3.2 million. We agreed to a surplus of 3.4 million a while back. Could you please explain the 160,000 reduction and the 173 in additional employers' cost through 89? And there's another. Yeah. And what is the resilience grant?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll refer that to the acting CFO to answer.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, so the 160,000 reduction, so firstly I answered the question on the resilience grant. So when we receive grants, normally we will take up the income as we spend the money. That's part of the grant agreement. However, with this specific grant, there was no conditions on the grant to actually have like a legal obligation to pay back or do anything with it. So we had to take up the money when we received the grant, which was last financial year. So we've had to make an adjustment to the budget for that period. In regards to the additional employee cost of 173,000, the part of that was materials and services cost. So we had 90,000 materials and services for legal contractors. So it was going to be external contractors. We now have a role internally for that. So that was a switch between materials and services to employee costs. The other remaining amount to take up to 173 was an additional role which is approved through the budget process, budget process, and made up the differences.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Take a vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Or any against? Next is FIN 04323 Audit Risk and Improvement Committee minutes of meeting held on 10th of August 2023, 19th of October 23 and 9th of November 23. Can I have a mover and a seconder?
You move it?
Yeah, you can.
I'll move it.
Second.
You can say.
Any questions?
Yep, through the chair, the director. Again, I'm looking at, suppose page 56 of the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee. The ARIC discussed required information on the following matters. And the first dot point on that paragraph is whether councillors were voting expenditure at the council meeting that was not adopted in the budget and the impacts of this occurring. So I'm not sure whether that was answered at any stage. And if we've got an answer for that, I'd like to know it.
Through you, Madam Chair. So it was discussed as it can be a common, I guess, risk in local government. But we did, I believe I was there and I responded in that through the budget process. Like, it's very consultative and the draft goes on exhibition first and then it's based on discussions of dropping items out or adding things in. Notices of motion and that also have to have a funding source, and we spoke about the financial implications section of it. So I raised that there were no there were no issues that I was concerned about. But again, it is something that each council meeting, it can be a risk that faces council, but we continue to monitor that and advise council that technically it wouldn't be a legal motion if there is no funding available.
Now, my understanding, a follow-up question through the chair. My understanding is that I understand that if you're putting together a notice of motion or a question on notice, if it involves direct expenditure, then of course it has to be thrown out, or it has to be deferred until we can find out where the money's coming from. Yeah, the concern I have, and I suppose I'd like to address that, operationally, you allocate to each directorship an operational budget. Now, I presume, how do you work the operational budget out? Because obviously there's staff that you have to pay, etc., etc., and also sometimes the councillors want more work done on what they want, on what they're focused on. So what happens with regards to when you're actually getting more work than operation you thought you needed in terms of cost?
Through you, Madam Chair. So it is a constant struggle that I think the local government sector is facing, that there's more requests and more pressure, I think, than what we have resources available. So through the budget process every year, we do highlight the main categories and the services, but you can go down to a deeper level by director, and they can talk more across the functions and what staff are doing, from workforce resourcing to contractor resourcing. We don't go to that current level now. It's more probably dealt with at an operational decision-making aspect. But ultimately, the integrated planning and reporting as well also guide where we direct resources and priorities each year. But if there's extra resources or extra requests coming in that we don't have funds for, then we just can't do it. Or if it's a timing thing, then you might start to see the time in things lapse as well. It could be correspondence. If we've got 2,000 correspondence a year and then we get 4,000 with no extra resources, you would think you can't meet that 10-day thing. So you would start to see maybe later response or overdue responses. But it is a common problem, and we're not immune. I think in last year's budget, I spoke about the increase in requests that had nearly gone up 50% with no extra resources. So that does put strain, and workforce, I guess, health and wellbeing becomes a factor as well. So it is something we have to do, is prioritise is key. But budget process is probably the time to do it.
Well, I've noticed that in one directorship, I think it was Andrew Lattis' directorship, there was a whole lot of work that had to be done. And he basically says he didn't have the resources. He didn't have the resources to do that right now in his operational budget. So I presume, would that be another thing that you might be looking at in the future? Like, for instance, if I ask you 50 questions, which are going to take 3 weeks, is it a situation where you'd say, I'm sorry, we can't do this because it's taking 3 weeks out of our operational time?
Through you, Madam Chair, not knowing the specifics of the request, and each one would have to be looked at differently. But I think a good example is correspondence, or just any request in general takes away from, if you've got resources to deal with the 1,000 requests and then you get 2,000, there's going to be an impact. So you will have to either say no or it causes delays. So capacity of delivery is always a thing. And I think the IPART just recently released their rate peg review. And the next phase of that is a review of the financial funding and model of councils and the sustainability. And being as part of a committee, we've discussed expenditure. It needs to be a big focus as to what councils do, what we can afford to do. Needs to start to be, I guess, stipulated and scoped, because it can't just keep growing and growing, because we only have a finite amount of resources and what the community are willing to pay. But I'd say the IPNR and the budget process and consultation is where we do that process. But always we can go to a deeper level if more information is required.
Thank you.
Just questions though, with the rate peg and stuff, does that mean what's the rate peg, as in we can increase it? Because we've been said we can't increase anything.
Through you, Madam Chair, it might be best though do a separate report, but just generally the rate peg is still capped by the IPART. So It's just the report discussed the calculation of the rate peg rather than the capping of the rate peg. So it's just how they calculate it will change into the future. But I'm happy to do a potentially either include it in the budget process. We'll probably talk about it in the long-term financial plan discussion, or I'll potentially do a separate report to council.
Okay, thank you. If you can put it to the vote, all those in favour? Any against? PIN 04423 OLG guideline,
That chair.
risk management internal audit in New South Wales local government models.
Second and a second.
So, councillor Symington, and who's the second would like to be,
I'll second.
any discussion around that?
Great to see that staff on the front foot about this. Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favour?
Aye.
Any against? There be no other business on the agenda. I declare this meeting closed at 6:33 PM.
Thank you.
Thank you.